Never engage when provoked. And this is going to be a follow-up from a video that I posted some time ago where I pretty much pinpointed this concept of provocation, where someone intentionally provokes someone in order to get a reaction out of them. Some people may even label this as reactive abuse. However, I wanted to build upon that video and this concept of never engaging when provoked because as I was doing Bible study just now, and I was studying the story of Hannah, it made me think about how Hannah actually had a rival in the Bible, and it was Peninnah, and how Peninnah would go out of her way to provoke Hannah because Peninnah had children and Hannah was dealing with a closed womb. Now, what's interesting about this story is we can obviously apply this to our life, and it doesn't have to be a literal issue with fertility. It could be an issue with you attaining or, achieving a particular goal. But what the story of Hannah and Peninnah teaches us is first and foremost staying focused on why God is delaying a particular process for us, and also not allowing the enemy to use people in our lives to get us off course through provoking us. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hop right into this biblical analysis. Before diving into this analysis, I actually want to read from the scripture that we're going to reference directly. And for those who want to follow along, which I strongly encourage you guys to do, I will be reading from 1 Samuel 1, verses 4 through 7. And it states, "Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her and the Lord had closed her womb. And because the Lord had closed her womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat." Now, when we put Hannah's story into context, right, imagine being provoked year after year. And this was a situation where Hannah couldn't avoid her rival because her rival was a part of her family structure. So that provocation was something that Hannah was exposed to on a consistent basis. Now, for people who are applying the scripture to their personal life, your situation may not be that you're dealing with another person in your family structure, but you may be dealing with a conniving coworker or colleague. And you've come to the conclusion that either you're not able to leave that job just yet, or maybe you feel like it's not in your best interest to leave the job because the pay is really great, but you're tired of having to deal with maybe smear campaigns or backbiting on the job. When you are exposed to this kind of repetitive provocation, it's important that you implement that emotional regulation just like Hannah did. Now, another thing that stood out to me and what I took notes on when reading the scripture was reading Hannah's story taught me that it's important for you to trust in the Lord and to not allow the enemy to use people to provoke you. And sometimes the delay that we think we're experiencing, it establishes gratitude and godly submission. And that's exactly what happened to Hannah. Because Hannah got to the point to where the provocation was so intense, she completely submitted herself to the Lord's will. She prayed for a son and she ended up getting him. And when she gave birth to Samuel, she was like, okay, God answered my prayer, and now I'm going to dedicate Samuel to the Lord. Now, another thing that stood out to me as I was studying the scripture was the difference between our timeline and the Lord's timeline, and how the enemy was strategically using Peninnah to provoke Hannah to where she felt like she had to rush the process. Mind you, as the scripture stated, this was something that was going on year after year. But the reason why the womb was closed, or Hannah's womb was closed, is because first and foremost, she was going to give birth to a prophet. And that prophet needed to be at a certain age at a certain time in order to lead a specific group for a specific purpose. The story of Hannah and Samuel can also teach us that some things that we're calling delays are actually divine appointments. And this is why it's important for us to lean not on our own understanding, but to trust in the Lord's agenda for us and to stay focused on our lane. And I've made a couple of videos talking about the importance of, just kind of staying in our lane and focusing on whatever it is that the Lord has for us. and steering clear of that need to compete, to compare, or even to explain ourselves, because it can derail us from our God-given assignment. Now, to elaborate a little bit more on this concept of delays, I'm actually going to read from an excerpt in the book In the Lion's Den, Navigating Systems of Power. And the Dominate the Delay excerpt reads, "A delay can be a hidden asset, allowing you to observe, learn, and refine your approach. While others may take pride in holding you back, they unknowingly place themselves under immense pressure. Being first may seem like an achievement, but it comes with risks, mistakes, miscalculations, and unforeseen obstacles. Instead of resisting delays, leverage them. Patience is a form of power." Now, I'm also going to read a couple of excerpts from the book Green Eyes to build upon this point a little bit more, specifically about dealing with provocation. And the first section that I'm going to read from is the provoker envious archetype. And it reads, "This is the individual who lives to provoke a response from their prey. Typically, the provoker aims to evoke negative responses from their targets. A negative response would validate them as they thrive whenever their prey appears to be disheveled, angry, distressed, sad, or depressed. As sadistic as it sounds, it is the harsh truth behind the provoker." And I'm also going to read from the excerpt in the book titled Pay Them Dust to help you understand how to deal with this envious archetype. And it states, "Sometimes the only way one can battle their adversaries is to completely disengage. This is different from showing indifference because indifference requires strategy. Every time the perpetrator makes an attempt to get a rise out of you, indifference would entail one reflecting on the purpose behind the attack and immediately counterbalance it. Disengagement, however, consists of complete withdrawal. Under particular circumstances, it may be in one's best interest to leave altogether, and this is not limited to the physical. We may not be able to avoid all the envious persons we encounter because we may work with them or even live with them. However, one can choose to establish fences." All right, loves, that's all that I have for this biblical analysis on Hannah, Peninnah, and Samuel. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, but of course, I want to hear you all's comments, your perspectives, your personal experiences in the comment section below. I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next one, babes. Take care.